So this is kind of a vulnerable topic for me because it involves some sensitive and emotional times in my life. But I think that it's only right that if I'm going to be talking about cycle syncing and also now personal training with cycle synced involved, it's only fair for me to share my story, how I got here, how I learnt everything that I learnt, and yeah, that's what this video is going to be. So hello and welcome back to Cycle Sync with Chi. I guess I'll start with those that are close to me or that know that I experienced a fairly traumatic time in my life when I was younger, which in itself, trauma is quite an interesting topic because therapists kind of use this big T, little t trauma, and something that one person experienced might not affect them as much as the exact same thing happening to someone else. So what I'm saying is you can never really judge one person's trauma. But anyways, through me being an anxious human, an overthinker, sensitive, young, etc., my father really affected me. The effects on our family life and all the events that followed really affected me. When my parents divorced when I was about 15, 16, I'd had my period since I was 14, but then with family stresses and moving schools and moving out of a school that I absolutely loved to bits, it stopped being as regular. And then we moved back to the UK from South Africa where I'd grown up, and everything there was totally different. That was adapting and adjusting to an entire new lifestyle, a new school. In the UK was just totally different. Like friends, I couldn't fit in. I felt totally different. I didn't know whether I was actually British or South African because I'd grown up in South Africa, so I felt more South African. But obviously I was British, my parents are British. So I had this weird identity crisis. Our dad also ended up following us back to the UK, which was totally unnecessary and then some more added stress. So I guess it's safe to say I never really settled in the UK. And that was from about, 15, 16 until I went to Bali. But anyway, straight after school, I went straight to London. I was scouted to model in the last year of school, but I had to wait until the end of school so that I actually finished school before I actually went full-time modeling. I was not having my period regularly then. To be honest, I think it was totally irregular and very random at that point, but it just felt like one less stress and one less thing to think about, and tampons are fucking expensive. And then the modeling world too, and having to literally fit in, and the kind of stresses that you would expect from the modeling world, as cliche as they are. Back then it was, I know now it's a lot more inclusive and they want all sizes, but yeah, back then it was very traditional and I was with Elite, which is high fashion. So there was all of that kind of pressure too. So that was definitely not the environment where I was going to get my period back. Yeah, the stress and out and about every day and not really putting myself first at all. Like it just wasn't, but it also wasn't a concern. I literally wasn't even thinking about it, not having a period. And then I did Fashion Week. If anyone has any model friends or is a model, the castings and the call times and the shows themselves and the back-to-back things, like it was insane. So I did Fashion Week and then I called it. I was like, I'll cash in now, thanks, and I'll go off to Southeast Asia. And then I started university, loved university, still had no period. Again, it was like university for me was like kind of restored my faith in England, I guess. I really had such a great time, made such good friends. But again, I guess the behaviors and everything that I'd adopted, which I'm going to talk about in a bit, just weren't conducive to me getting a cycle back, basically. But again, totally oblivious and was just kind of bouncing through life. After university, I went back to London. I was offered a role in London in health and wellness, working on recipe development and things for a health food cafe for gut health. So I ended up going there. That again, I felt just being back in London, the crazy pressure, the stress, everyone's bubbling around, and I just felt naturally stressed, basically, like without even being stressed, and I put all these extra pressures and things on myself. But anyway, London was officially where I hit my rock bottom, I would say. Obviously, like no period then and no signs of a cycle at all. And yeah, then I decided like that I wasn't happy, I wasn't feeling good, so that's when I went to Bali. In Bali, I learned pretty much everything I know now about cycle syncing, about periods, about hormones, about the female body, also a lot of self things like self-awareness, self-care, all of these things which I guess I totally missed out on when I was younger because of this big chunk of my life which was under some blanket of stress and pressure and from this like traumatic, I just never really felt me ever since I left that school in South Africa. I kind of lost myself. And Bali for me was like where everything kind of came, learned everything that I now know. About a year in, I picked up modeling again to earn money, but I needed very little. And especially during COVID, there wasn't really much, but the jobs kind of came in these waves, which meant that I had these bouts of like a lot of time on my hands. And it kind of all hit me. I absolutely hadn't addressed this very serious problem and dysfunction that I had in my body. And I met these incredibly inspiring women and people, and a great friend of mine, Laura, who explained cycle syncing to me. And yeah, just that kind of sparked a lot of chats within our friends. And I was like, fuck, like I actually don't really have, I really need to sort this out. Yes, I'd gone to doctors in the UK and nutritionists and naturopaths, GPs, doctors, which if I'm very honest, I'm not sure if they helped at all. Through everyone just telling me what to do and what not to do and what to eat and what not to eat and how to live and everything, I kind of like, it triggered this very obsessive perfectionist behavior in me, which meant that I ended up cutting out a load of foods and not doing things, and just developed this perfectionist obsessive kind of behavior, which then turned into an eating disorder, which obviously didn't help anything either. GPs just said, gain weight, great, thanks, or go on the pill. And I'm like, I'm going to do a whole video on the pill, but going on the pill is not going to fix it, really. It might rejig hormones, but if things aren't right, like you come off the pill and then you've still got the root problem. So anyway, Bali was the time where I actually kind of sunk in, and I was determined to fix it for myself. So I researched, listened, read, watched literally everything that I could about hormones, about the female body, about missing periods, about everything basically. Because I believe that if I understood the biology, and I friggin' love biology, that's what I did at university, of what should be happening in my body, I'll figure out what's missing and what's not happening. And I'm going to go through now what my main realizations were, which I would accredit to me not having a cycle, which might be incredibly helpful for you if you don't have a cycle, or just interesting for you to know. And these things also now are what I use to manage and keep everything kind of in sync. So the first thing was stress, and I'd been constantly, consistently surrounded by stress, whether I was aware of it or not. I was, Bali taught me a lot, the kind of person that puts so much stress and pressure on myself to perform, to get top grades, to make the teams, to XYZ. My dad was very pushy too, so I had a lot of that kind of ingrained in me as well. And even though I didn't technically have someone cracking a whip anymore, I was cracking the whip. Whether it was modeling, I've got to be skinnier, I've got to go to these castings, I've got to look a certain way, I've got to be blah blah blah. Or in life in general, like I've got to exercise more, I've got to push, I've got to do intermittent fasting, I've got to, self-care kind of just went out of the window. And basically I was just so against my own body and totally neglecting everything that I actually needed, and was essentially living totally externally to my body or entirely in my brain and not listening. Like I had everyone telling me things to do, and that is what kind of dominated. I never had really listened to myself. So that was a massive realization, and as soon as I kind of made that mind-body connection, things just started kind of flowing and falling into place. So in Bali, as much as the change in location was necessary for me to break habits, to just shake up routines, it totally offered me the space and time to just relax and notice that if I was stressed, it was because I was putting stress on myself. Bali's great like that. And then I think why I was putting the stress on myself. And when I didn't stress about it and took the pressure off, I still did it. I still got there. I still did what I was planning to do. Not as I'd originally planned it to, but loosening control and releasing the stress and the pressure, it still gets done. That was a massive realization for me. And I just want to say here, like, I know that not everyone can just go to Bali and stop everything and make as drastic change as that, but use the bare bones of this example, that it was the space and the time to gain the self-awareness. And the main thing I needed here was to overcome and realize and manage the stress that was entirely self-made. So that doesn't need to have come from flying to Bali, but for me, that is where I learned that. Something I also picked up which really helped with stress was journaling, and I'd always thought that journaling was this dear diary, enter into a blank page. But the more I journaled, the more I started creating these exercise pages for myself. And if you remember when I said I felt totally lost and not myself since I'd left that school in South Africa, I really felt like I created these journaling exercises to essentially find myself again. Very cliche, I know, in Bali. But that again helped my self-confidence and my sense of self, which I think was a massive step to reconnecting to myself, my mind, my body, and ultimately my hormones and my hormonal cycle. And yeah, journaling, meditation, writing, all of those kind of things really helped me just slow down my thoughts, actually see what I was thinking. Like when you write something out, you can see it. And going back on them gave me the perspective, which essentially made more growth. It was so good. So I also developed my own journaling style, which I'm hoping that one day will be out there for other people to use and benefit from like I did. But yeah, I felt journaling, and especially this type of journaling that I was doing, was incredible for my stress and incredible for just reconnecting to myself, which is what I needed in this busy London life. Or before, I just was so not there and not even aware that like I didn't have a period or a normal cycle. So the first one being stress, the big realization. The second one was nutrition. I've always been very interested in nutrition and health and wellness from about age 15, which hilarious. I have this memory of making wheatgrass shots with my best friend from school and like sweet potato brownies in her kitchen and being like, ooh. Anyways, since then, I've always had this interest, passion in health things and feeling good. I had and still have IBS, which at a young age meant that I had this, I mentioned it earlier, kind of obsession with foods that would make my stomach upset and foods that didn't. And I would stick to the foods that didn't upset my stomach and absolutely totally avoid the ones that did, which also did give me that awareness that when I eat a certain way and fresh and clean and all of this, I feel great. So I had these foundations of health and wellness and nutrition and everything. But the whole like healthy food thing and nutritionists and naturopaths and just the health world and modeling kind of turned into orthorexia, which again is not actually healthy in itself, and spiraled into a stress. That's essentially a stress. But essentially I did learn so much about nutrition, and I worked under a naturopath for a long time who I learned so much from. Naturopathy really resonated with me as a way for the body to heal itself and giving it the exact tools that it needs. So if you're deficient in a certain nutrient on a very basic level, naturopathy works on giving that nutrient back to the body to enable it to do what it needs to do through food. So that's where the foundations of this cycle syncing recipes kind of came from. But when I was going down my research rabbit hole during COVID and I was researching all the things that happen in certain phases, I was like, oh, well, there must be like a nutrient that's needed more of in that phase, or a macronutrient as well. Like, when do we need more carbs? When do we need less carbs? When do we need more protein? When are fats important? What types of fats? What vitamins do we need in each phase? So this like the experience of working with a naturopath in London kind of unlocked this. When I was researching, I was like, whoa, even the types of food that you're eating, like, is it cooked? Is it warm? Is it raw? Is it cold? All of that kind of feeds into cycle syncing. And when I was doing all of this research, I was realizing that the way that I was eating and what I was eating, I had this like idea that I was eating super healthily, but in terms of what my body needed in each phase and to have a healthy regular cycle, probably wasn't. So nutrition became a big realization that I started working on, and seed cycling, which I've done a video on, which I'll pop up here, really helped. Some more minor realizations that I had in this like introspective time when I was looking through everything in the way that I was living is that I was exercising totally out of sync. I was doing way too much. I was pushing, and because I was also eating funny and intermittent fasting, and I like fasted cardio and all of that, I was into all of that, and which of course is totally anti women's hormones and cycle syncing, which is why I'm so passionate now about sharing the actual female specific science as it comes out. But that was totally not conducive to me getting a cycle back. So I addressed my exercise, like how much I was doing and the types of exercise. I adjust my nutrition, what I was eating in certain phases, how I was eating, what I was eating, you know, all of that. Was it warm, cooked, raw, all of that. And my stress, big one, journaling and bit of meditation, bit of breath work, yin yoga. I don't know if anyone's tried that, but that's incredible too. And then another big one I very much endorse, and yeah, no, I still have regular acupuncture. Obviously there was a imbalance in my body with the organs not doing what they're doing, and acupuncture works on meridians and organs. So that helped to stimulate what needed to be stimulated, whether it was my pituitary gland or other kind of imbalances that were there. Acupuncture was phenomenal for getting my period back. So in summary, I think the two main things that really helped me get my period back that I addressed was stress and nutrition. But then the biggest component for it all is self-awareness. And that enabled me to take stress off, because with the self-awareness, if I'm stressed, why am I stressed? Like, I don't want to be stressed. And also the self-awareness to nourish my body with what it needed. Listening. I'm really craving this right now. Or I just want to eat fruits and salads. Or, oh my God, give me all the dark chocolate. And then in turn to live the lifestyle I needed to as well. Today I don't feel like seeing anyone. Today I'm in a really focused work mood. Well, this kind of is self-awareness, right? Knowing what you need when you need it. And I'd lived so out of sync with myself for so long that in Bali I really gave myself, but it doesn't have to necessarily be Bali, this phase that I had, I really gave myself everything that I needed, that I'd said no to before. Once I took the stress off and let self-awareness and myself actually speak, like my body, not my mind telling my body what it needs, that connection, as well as the knowledge and the biology and the science of what is happening and the awareness, is I am one of those people that likes to understand. Like I would always stall the car when I was learning to drive. And as soon as someone explained it to me that when you put the clutch down, whatever happens inside the car happens, and then you can change gear. As soon as I understood it, I never stalled again. So coupled with the knowledge and everything that what is happening inside the body through these phases, that coupled with this actual self-awareness that, oh, I'm really craving a burger today. Funny that I'm about 3 days before my period. Everything kind of started to click, and it made everything less stressful because I was more sure of things and less all over the place and not really knowing what to do. And I was just following this and then doing a little bit of that and then doing that, and like not really actually listening to what I wanted to do. I was literally all over the place. So for anyone who has lost their period or it is irregular or totally not there like mine was, the first thing I would recommend doing is journaling. My mental state had so much to do with how I felt my body, and actually feeling calm, relaxed and safe enough for my body to do what it naturally should be doing. So I would track. If you don't have a cycle at all and aren't feeling any kind of changes or fluctuations, I'd just start with tracking. Track how you feel every day, track certain cravings, consider how you're feeling at certain times, and this will just help you to learn how you feel more about certain things. Just getting it all out there too, like an absolute brain dump, mind dump, really helps if you're feeling stuck, confused, lost, unsure, and you might even see the answers as you're writing it and you slow everything down, but you'll certainly feel some lightness and just from getting things off your chest. And the aim with journaling is just to get to know yourself a bit deeper, deepen your self-awareness, and have that time and space with yourself, for yourself, to understand yourself better. Because that time and space was what brought me back to me, helped me understand what was actually going wrong and not happening, and then how to sync up to it and eventually balance itself out again. The second thing I'm going to recommend is seed cycling, which I have done a full video on, which I'll link below, and it's also up here. I'd recommend acupuncture. I'd recommend meditation just to calm any stress. And if meditation sitting cross-legged isn't your thing, maybe it's a walk. Maybe it's something totally monotonous. I don't know, something where your mind stops thinking and stops working. And lastly, educate yourself. And that is why I am so passionate about bringing you everything that I am on Cycle Sync with G, because the knowledge and the understanding and the scientific background is essentially what helped me get there. Without knowing what I learned for myself and researched and read and listened to and watched, I wouldn't have understood, why certain things happen and when certain things happen and why I was feeling a certain way. And eventually, it all started to make sense when I did understand. So I think educating yourself is an enormous step in, firstly, it's a form of self-care too, like caring what is going on inside your body, what's not actually happening, and knowing what should be happening is an enormous form of self-care. So yeah, I will continue to post all this, and there's so much that's like not even known yet that hasn't been tested on females. As I said, I was intermittent fasting for about a year and doing fasted cardio and all of this stuff, which is now coming up as like absolutely like women should not, especially in certain times of the cycle. Sometimes it's more tolerable, but like they've gone from saying, you know, fasted cardio is the way to burn fat and the way to blah 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 to now like women should not. Do you know what I mean? And that really had a big impact on me because I lost my cycle and it wasn't helping me get it back. So I'm sharing this information and knowledge with you so that you don't have to go and read science papers like I can and I learned how to do at university. Also, everything that I learned and researched and everything for myself can hopefully help you. So I hope that was helpful. My email is on this page if you want to reach out or DM me on Instagram. I'm so open to, you know, sharing any kind of knowledge, wisdom, anything with you if this is something that you are struggling with. Of course, I've been through it myself. And yeah, for anyone that does have a cycle and wants to work with their cycle, I would love to help with that as well. There's a ton of information on my website. And yeah, just keep watching these videos, subscribe, share it with your friends, share it with people that also might find it helpful, and see you next time.